already gave you the time and the place, so don't be shy. Just come be the man I need. Tell me you got some-
Welcome to Hustle and Glow, the podcast for women who are building something real on their own terms without burning out. I'm Francesca Alexander, and this is where we talk about marketing, community, identity, and what it actually takes to grow a business that fits your life. Welcome back. So good to be back, definitely. Back in New Zealand, I was in Los Angeles for a bit just to visit family. Nephew was having a wedding. Everybody was just so adorable. I literally still have part of me in LA. So it's been a while to actually adjust, but so glad to be back in New Zealand. And I say that even if it's cold, it's just, we're going into winter. But anyway, today's episode is going to be quite an interesting one for me because I'm really doing something that honestly in my professional career, there has been a very long time of just trying to assimilate, fit in, do everything that I could possibly do to be respected. And that was in corporate life, like just, assimilate for sure and see how you can flow within the culture and really contribute so much that you can prove yourself worthy of a traditional type of, I don't know, like a promotion or maybe even a title change. And that was so me in my 20s and early 30s. Like I just needed that. I needed validation through my corporate job. And in my mid 30s, I switched to actually doing a couple of things that were for myself. I used to be a makeup artist and I started my makeup artist like freelance work and also had a studio that I worked for and booked in the early aughts. Like seriously, was so much fun. And yes, corporate was still in there and trying to fit in and trying to do all those things. However, I now can afford to say yes to jobs I liked and no to jobs or no to people that I thought were out of alignment. So this was interesting, especially coming from a place of service. This was interesting to me and I really liked it and I really excelled at it so much that I had this marketing layer that I've always naturally done and went back into corporate, worked with skincare lines like Kate Somerville and Sonia Dakar and really understood what it meant to just have that sort of abbreviation of what you wanted to do and put out in the world and also contribute it to a company and exceed in the company. And corporate and me didn't, I feel like I always play with this. I'm probably a really good consultant or provider, an advisory type way. So that is all good. I've been doing it forever. It's been amazing. Love it. With that said, there have been things that I feel hold me back. And I'm really interested in why. Like, why is it that I didn't excel in this side? Now, honestly, half of me I feel like half of me should have been an engineer. And the other half was right to go into the path of art. You know what I mean? Being an artist, learning how to be an artist, doing things that are not traditionally seen. So everything that I've done in my role, just in my business and any kind of like if I were client side, I've always had that element. And I really felt like it separated me from a lot of people because I saw things in a different way. So it made me think like, okay, well, why didn't I excel in becoming more of that engineer side or that tech side? And my dad's an engineer and he would always tell me like, you have to be curious, you have to follow through, you have to figure out why is it working or why is it not working? And then you use the data to actually elevate that self. Yeah, for some people that just sounds absolutely chalkboard boring. I get it. I get it. For me for a long time, it was just like I didn't want to stay in the field of proving or data. I just wanted to, I'm more of an initiative type person and I wanted to just bolt through and see what happens. Like A and B split testing is great for some, but for me, I would just want to go ahead and execute this and see if it goes up or down. That was kind of my way of doing things. And the more that I leaned into tech, it kind of expanded my mind in a way that I didn't know was going to do. This is where I really believe is the first time I started thinking in the mindset of building a product or a solution and or building marketing tech that will support the marketing movement. So coming from a sales background and an artistry background, this is actually the perfect match for me, and I was excited to do it. So in this episode, I also want to see and discover, why did it take me so long? I mean, in your mid-30s, you're still quite young, but for me, this sort of idea of having tech introduced in my life should have probably happened like at the latest 12 or 13. So in this episode, we're going to break it down a little bit. And I'm also going to share with you some stats, not only from New Zealand, but also in Los Angeles. So coming up, we're going to go ahead and really look at this directly. I want to start off with a sentence that took me a really long time to be able to say out loud. You were not bad at science. You were redirected away from it. And those are two completely different stories. So this is the thing, right? So when we think about especially me, when I grew up like in the 80s and 90s, definitely thought of like, how was tech introduced with me, if at all? And it was really shocking because I also thought of like, okay, well, computer classes and computer science was really starting to come up in high school, but mostly that whole room was with males. And I remember when I went into it and I was kind of curious about it and I signed up for it at the first time, I was the only girl in the room. And I was like, not the first time, not the first time being in this space, but this was hard. This was really hard to do it. And I noticed too that I wasn't really folded into a thought process or a community or people that were actually talking about something like Linux, you know what I mean? And fold me into that opportunity. So I was just very quiet and I listened. And then also I sort of self-ejected because nobody was really interacting with me. And I'm talking about the teacher down. Like, the teacher is the one that sets the tone. And I felt like he was always disappointed in me not catching it or getting basic concepts. It was later than I left that classroom that I was able to digest and understand it myself. But it was tough and it definitely wasn't encouraged. And that is something that I was really curious about when I was thinking about, okay, well, tall poppy syndrome here. And I've talked about this before. I feel like within the AI structure of learning AI, that women go, it's too hard, and I'm going to put it in a too hard basket. I'm not going to go into it. And plus, I've heard some things that it's not very ethical. That's all well and good. And certainly if you want to go down that rabbit hole and look at it and judge and discern, that's sounds actually brilliant. Like you're using your own self-discernment to see what's actually good, what isn't. Now, my point is, if you just heard these things that it's too tough, and it might not be ethically the way that we want to do, plus people are losing jobs, and that's going to stop me from actually learning, then this is where I really want to talk to the women in this sphere, like whoever's listening. This is where we need to have that discussion because nothing should put you off on learning more about something, especially like AI, where AI is going to be dominating the future. And if you do not get in the understanding or the AI fluency that you need now, how are you going to future-proof yourself? How are you going to do that? How are you also to a point where the New Zealand government just mass fired a lot of people? And in the capital, the Beehive, they went ahead and done all of this mass unemployment to a lot of people. And some reporters were asking for what was the due diligence plan? What was the governance in finding this out? How are you also finding it out? How are you going to apply AI in a meaningful way that is ethical going forward? And they couldn't answer. See, that's the point. If you're going to be in a role where they're going to go, well, we really think that AI is going to take over your role and we want to have you help us do that. It's kind of like when you're going to be asked to get fired or you're leaving a role and that you have to, do a crazy Excel spreadsheet of okay, this is our operations and this is our system, how to complete something. No one likes doing that. But instead, and this is why I love Claude, Claude is stating that any AI system should be looked at whether they should be doing it at all. And the best kind of way to do any AI in a role is that you have a human element in there. Otherwise, it's not a complete system. There should be some sort of governance, human that will actually oversee everything and make sure that the ethics are still there. That's why I'm a Claude partner. Just that alone, right? So once you see all of that, how do you apply everything, and where is the conversation? So in New Zealand, here's the part of history that most people don't really tell you about or talk about. And it just kind of reframes everything. So between 1500 and 1800, women, luckily enough to gain education, often found a home in science or math. Science was actually seen as more of an appropriate discipline for women than the classics. And that is really surprising. So then between like 1850 and 1870, it changed. As science professionalized, and it did not just refuse women admittance, it expelled them by definition from the newly defined field. So it was really hard for women to actually go forward with that. So if women could not be professionals and science was not professional, then women could not do science. So this is the thing, right? So the exclusion is not an accident. Anytime that something got popularized and what men can actually do in a professional setting, all of a sudden women couldn't do it. And we've seen this time and time again. This absolutely had to do with the computer science, right? As soon as women started to discover how to code and how to do it, men has taken it over, right? So there has been a lot of instances where this has happened. Now, this is where I think when women are starting to get repositioned in the thought process of actual sciences as a career, is that something that you want to be able to do? So by 1870, women could be educated in science, but they were kind of barred from scientific careers. So that's really, really interesting. And so that's the hardship of it. So the whole thing too, it's like, I wanted to also not just pick on New Zealand, and I've in this article that if you go on my blog, it's cited. You can actually look to see the stats yourself, and I'm gonna weave in and out of those stats and its findings, just in general. So for me personally, when I look at writing articles, I look at two places because I kind of want to see what the middle ground is, like from a place like New Zealand. And to see I guess it's like just a microcosm of what the world stage and society looks like, because they're so small. Literally, even now, the whole country has 5 million people. I almost said 1,000 million people. And that's like the city of Los Angeles or New York City. So if you think that, it's just this tiny drop. But I think a lot of the ideas come from Europe, in particular England. When I was sworn in as a citizen, I had to pledge my allegiance to the king. I think if you know me, you know if I did that or not. Too soon? Yeah, just a little bit. But anyway, we have that ideology, and then we also have the gorgeous Maori culture here that for me personally is my baseline. Like that's my alignment piece, right? But anyway, from 1877, when New Zealand established a national education system, that system developed according to those accepted, notions of different roles of what men would do and how women would play a part in that whole role, right? So secondary education was offered to boys more readily than girls. And the redirection was in the foundation and not really added later. So like in 1985, the situation was concerning enough that the New Zealand Association for Women in the Sciences had to be founded just to give girls confidence that science was for them. That's huge. And to make that point is like the whole organization had to exist to counteract the systems of its own design, right? So like the sciences, male domination, how do we get women to really understand that this is also a profession that they can do. Still a lot of work. And then by 2023, women were 61.7% of New Zealand graduates, but only 39.9% of STEM. So only 20% of the digital technology positions are held by women. I guess I'm part of that, right? Because when I came in here, I did hold some of those positions. But sadly, just really not good enough, to use my Kiwi vernacular. In the final year of high school, physics stays male-dominated, while nearly 70% of biology students are female. Computer and engineering subjects are continually male-dominated and getting more so. Food technology and textiles are the only female-dominated technology domains. Oh, God. Sit on that one, right? Like girls pointed to the kitchen and the sewing machines, and boys pointed to the machines that built the future. But in saying that too, if we know anything about being pointed to the kitchen, so if they're doing anything in hospo or, in restaurant service, and if you're behind a sewing machine and you're a designer, you're creating a brand, who's at the top? It's not females. It's also male dominated. So likely that the dominated boss is going to be a male. And if you're in New Zealand, it's likely going to be a white male. At current rates, the imbalance at the University of Auckland is projected to persist until 2070. So that's just not a blip. That's a huge gap, and we really need to look at that. Now, let's also look at Los Angeles, right? So women are 42% of California workforce, but only a quarter of them are STEM workers. Fewer women were in math careers in 2023 than 5 or 10 years earlier. It's not stalled. It's literally going backwards. For over a decade, officials poured millions into boosting women in STEM, and the results were just absolutely disappointing. And the rate barely improved. The devastating one, just before the pandemic, California girls had overtaken boys in math and closed the gap. Girls had a higher math score in 62% of California districts in 2018 and in 2019. And then by 2023 and 2024, that collapsed to 4%. In Los Angeles Unified specifically, girls' scored dropped while boys rose. I mean, just by saying that, I'm getting really, really nauseous because it's getting me angry. It's getting me angry that it's a whole flawed system. So it's not just government. It is how are we encouraged in the house? How are we talked to in the classroom? What are the expectations of doing any of that? And how are we as a society actually putting women on a pedestal if they do go into the STEM arts? So it's just, it's crazy. And it's really disturbing, right? So this is the other thing that we really need to talk about. Now, I am not telling you this to make you like all in despair. I'm just telling you because anger, the clear and useful kind, is the beginning of refusal. It's the beginning of, my favorite word, resistance. We should not be taking these in and letting them just lie there. Now, here's a couple of things that I think we should really, really focus on. Now, nearly equal percentages of young men and women say their schools encourage them towards STEM, but 54% of young men report actually learning computer programming in schools versus only 39% of young women. The encouragement was not always the variable, the exposure was. The boys were in a room where the coding happened and the girls were like somewhere else. So this is where I thought this Coded Poppy series would really help us gain an understanding of like, okay, this is actually an activist movement. We need to actually see how can we support our up and coming females and also females that are curious about technology in general, because I will tell you this. Especially for my career, right? I was like a makeup artist in Los Angeles, and then I went into tech. And the reason why I didn't go into tech sooner is because I didn't think I could do it. Okay, so, and I probably fully went into tech in my mid-30s. You're never too old. And by the way, mid-30s is not old. I am 55 and I have a thriving business that is in tech. In fact, when I see a lot of the other people that are colleagues They're much older. A lot of people sit in that expertise level in their 60s. And the cool thing about women that are older and are in a profession is that they actually know a bit more of not only the emotional responses that other women have to go through to get where they're at, but can actually communicate that more so than men, because we know that women always communicate better than men. I mean, that's just, you can't really argue with that, right? We know that to be true. So going back to the basis of what a tall poppy syndrome is, it is saying, and it should never be a humbling thing, right? But what it has been, it is a cover-up philosophy for people to keep you down, whether it's internally, because trust me, I still have to work on my internal misogyny and work through that, as well as my internal white supremacy, because that is so hard to still shake. It really is. And it is something that we have to constantly be and practice and clear and understand and know the stuff. So if anything, this podcast or this particular episode is to help you sort of challenge your thoughts and process. How are you showing up for younger women? Are you encouraging them? What would a world in tech actually look like? And I'm going to say this too, because this really pissed me off this week. It's just been crazy. Like, I've always wanted Meta glasses, right? And then we saw, or like the last 3 to 5 years, we have seen what men have been doing with Meta glasses. And it's, you can't even be anonymous on the street. You might be followed. You might be, creeped on with those glasses, right? And so what Meta has been doing to try to recapitulate the narrative of what those glasses are is they're using female models that look very smartly and, in them, and are actually using them in practical ways that may help you with business or may help you just as a person in 2026 really reside in a very intelligent space. And we know that is not how popular or why these glasses are popular. They're there to actually help you, if you're a male, do all the incredulous things that men do when they're led to their own devices, right? So if we had women that were more impactful in this space, would we know more about this? Just even the ethical piece of what we can and cannot do. How can we use products like this and still be safe? There's just this huge thing where we have to own our safety. We have to make sure that we are a part of the governance conversation. And because we're not in tech, we're not really a part of that, right? And don't give me, what is her name? Oh my God, I just have to find it. I blocked it out. It's Sheryl Sandberg. She's not exactly in that mindset. We don't need somebody that is going to push through ideology that's not ethical. We need somebody that actually is going to go, we need an AOC in there. We need a tech AOC that's going to go, actually, no, that's not what we're doing because that's not ethical. And you can absolutely be in that space. And I invite you to actually, if anything here looks interesting to you, I'm actually going to put Claude, I think is it called Claude Academy? No, it's not. It's by Anthropic. So if you go to anthropic.com/learn, you can actually look to see how the AI fluency or the AI fluency will help you, guide you through on things that maybe you should just learn about, research it, see if this is something that you like. Have a good poke around and then let me know what that looks like. Because it's so important more than ever that we actually take charge of who we are and don't ask a damn person for permission. Just do it because it feels good. That's it for today's show. Thank you so much. And I really appreciate you on the podcast. Thanks so much. Most people are talking about AI. We're building with it live in the room in 60 minutes. The AI Marketing Lab at Social Global Grind HQ in Wynyard Quarter is a hands-on session where you watch an AI agent get built from scratch and leave knowing exactly how it applies to your business. Every session is capped at 6 seats, so the work actually gets done in the room. Find the Eventbrite link at socialglobalgrind.com or in the show notes.